Alright, welcome everyone to my first digital coffee tasting. I'll be doing these coffee tastings live once a week. My scheduled days are going to be Tuesday mornings, so if you guys want to join me live every Tuesday morning to do a coffee tasting, we will be exploring the world through tasting the different flavors of coffee that the different regions have to offer us. So today, we are going to be tasting Bolivia Sol de la Manana. It is a Latin American roast with sweet lemon notes with hints of vanilla and a milk chocolate finish. It is a full body wash coffee, so we're going to get a lot of those. That's where the milk chocolatey notes come out in, is the full body wash. So I love a good Latin American coffee, and the Bolivia Sol de la Manana is amazing. So I'm actually have my coffee prepped two different ways today. Today we are going to be tasting the Bolivia Sol de la Manana on a Chemex and also just a normal pour over, and I'm just going to be explaining like the different flavors that we get from the different types of brew processes. So Bolivia Sol de la Manana is a small lot coffee, and so what that means is that it's a conglomeration of a community of farmers that come from a small region of the world. And so when you get like a core bag of coffee, you're getting different parts of an entire region all jammed into one bag. And so when that happens, you're getting a whole lot of flavors that you can't really discern of. But with our small lot coffees, because they come from very distinct regions of the world, they're going to have very distinct flavors on where they come from, depending on what the climate is like, what's grown in the area, what gets put back into the soil. So all that has a major factor in how the coffee plays out. And with this small lot coffee, because we're getting coffee from a very distinct region of the world, we're going to have very distinct flavors from that region as well. Yeah, so the small lot coffees, they're really cool because it's a way for us to kind of explore the world through exploring coffee flavors. So right now we're exploring a Latin American coffee. Latin American coffees are my favorite because they tend to be very smooth and medium in flavor. And then you often get like the dark, or not the dark, but the milk chocolatey notes with the caramel or nutty flavors. And that's typically what I like to go for when I'm looking for a coffee. So with the pour over, this is going to be like your standard cup of coffee. It's going to be just like a regular drip that you would brew in a normal coffee brewer. The nice thing about a pour over though is it's going to be a single cup serve, so you know that it's going to be fresh. You know that it's going to be nice and hot because you just got done brewing it. But with the Chemex is going to be much smoother of a coffee flavor. Just because of the filter that's being used in a Chemex brewer. So on the paper filter for the Chemex, we're using it's like a triple walled filter on the one side. So what happens there is we're actually getting a little bit more of the oils and the sediment being absorbed into the paper filter. So we're getting a little bit more of that liquid passing through and a little bit more of the oils. So that just causes for a smoother cup of coffee. And then it's also good for people who are sensitive to high acid or that can't drink as much oil as some people can when it comes to coffee. So Chemex is a good alternative if you get easy upset stomachs from coffee, just because you're reducing the amount of acids and oils inside your cup of coffee. Alright, So it looks like our coffee is done being brewed. So we're going to go ahead and taste our coffee. So with our the Bolivia Sol de la Manana, it's going to have the sweet lemon notes with hints of vanilla and milk chocolate. So first I'm going to go ahead and I am going to take a taste of the pour over. It's going to be very hot, so if you guys are joining in live on the coffee tasting, don't burn your tongue, because this is going to be very, very hot. So, doing a coffee tasting, there's 3 steps to the tasting. So one of the first steps we're going to do is we're going to smell the coffee. And so right off the bat with the regular pour over, I'm not getting too much bright notes off of it. I'm really getting that milk chocolate flavor aroma coming off the coffee. Now, when you drink your coffee, you want to try and let it get all over the palate of your tongue, so that way you're getting all the different flavors. And so this one, the Bolivia Sol de la Manana, it's a very, very smooth coffee right off the bat, even without a Chemex, just a regular traditional pour over. It's a very easy coffee to drink. It's not too bold, not too intense. So that's why this is one of my favorites that we currently have right now. So now that we've smelled and tasted our coffee, now my palate has time to clear, now I'm going to analyze the leftover flavors of that I'm tasting. And so what I kind of get left over is a little bit of bright acidity on the sides and a little bit of bitterness at the back of my tongue. And so the bitterness is going to be from the milk chocolate nuts that's left over, and then with that bright lemon acidity that we got in the tasting notes too, is going to kind of linger on, but it's not too intense. It's very subtle, which is very nice. So now I'm going to compare it to the Chemex brew. So the Chemex brew is going to automatically be so much more smoother, much easier to drink. And the Bolivia Sol de la Manana, it doesn't necessarily need a brewing method to make it smoother, because it's already so smooth. So this is going to probably be actually very light, probably underwhelmingly light. So I might like the pour on this one versus the Chemex. And then this one would actually be very good on a French press because of how smooth it is. The French press will bring out more of those chocolatey notes and bringing forward some more of those bitters, making it a little bit more of a darker coffee, but still not too dark, very smooth still. Okay, so yeah, this one, it's crazy how much the flavor is completely different. So over here on this side, I'm getting a whole lot less of the lemon flavors. The acidity on the sides is not nearly as predominant as it was on the pour over. Even though the pour over wasn't very strong, there was a little bit of lingeringness with the acidity. But with this guy, all I'm getting right now is I'm just getting those bitters on the back of the tongue. Like I just ate like a dark chocolate bar, and I'm just getting that bitterness. So some people like to ask me what's the best way to brew coffee, and I like to let people know that there is no best way to brew coffee. It's just what you're looking for when you drink coffee. Like, what flavors are you looking for? Are you looking for a nice and bold, intense, flavorful cup of coffee? Are you looking for a smooth cup of coffee? Your lifestyle might be impacting what kind of brew you should do. If you're trying to reduce the amount of oils and acidity that you're taking in, then Chemex is the perfect. But if you don't mind the acidity, and maybe you like the sediment in the coffee as well, that brings out more of those bitters and bold flavors, French press is perfect for you. So there really is no perfect brew. It's all perspective. Like, what flavor are you going for when you brew coffee? And so now I'm going to go ahead and pair the coffee with a pastry. So today I chose to do the sugar plum cheese Danish. The sugar plum cheese Danish is going to be fairly sweet. So it's going to be like a croissant with some sugar plum dressing on it. And so I'm kind of hoping that the coffee kind of dies down the sugar plum cheese Danish, because the sugar plum cheese Danish can be a little bit too sweet on its own, especially for certain people. So by pairing the coffee with the sugar plum cheese Danish, I'm attempting not to really complement the coffee, but complementing the sugar plum cheese Danish. So what I'm kind of hoping for is it bringing down that sweetness and mellowing it out a bit, making it a much more elegant pastry to eat. It's very interesting. So it definitely cancels out the cream cheese on the sugar plum Danish, and what that does is when it cancels out the bitterness, cancels out the cream cheese, and makes it creamy, like makes the coffee a little bit creamier. But then the sugar plum really comes forward, and so right now what I'm getting is a lot of bright acidity notes left over, and I'm not getting any of that chocolate bitterness at the back of my tongue like I would if I were drinking it black. So not only did it reduce the sweetness of the sugar plum cheese Danish, but it also it took away the bitterness of the coffee and then really brought forward the acidity notes, which is very interesting, really good. It really highlighted the lemon notes. So now that we've done our tasting, I kind of want to talk about the culture of coffee. So one of the best parts about the reserve coffee that we serve at Starbucks is the fact that it's a small lot bean, and the small lot beans have really cool stories because the communities that we source these beans from are impacted substantially by the fact that they're able to source directly to Starbucks rather than source it through a third-party processing plant. And then there's a whole bunch of cool other stories, like the Sol de la Manana that we're trying right now has a really cool story. Luis Emilio Valladares, 30 years ago, he went back to school for agricultural science, and he did this so that he can bring science back to his community. And so that's where this coffee gets its name. It's called the Bolivia Sol de la Manana because Sol de la Manana is the initiative that Luis Emilio Valladares started to help bring science to the community, to help maintain the crops and create sustainability. So 30 years ago, he went back to school to learn agricultural science, and then he came back to Bolivia, and he started this initiative. And so he works with the local farmers to incorporate science into farming and using technology to better their lives. And so one of the big things that why this is important is because global warming is impacting different parts of the world, and especially in Latin America, where the climate can already be somewhat tropical in certain areas, and so that could already be can get kind of warm. And so with the climate getting warmer, certain diseases kind of thrive a little bit better. And so there's this disease called the rust disease, and so it does exactly what it sounds like. It turns the leaves of the coffee plants a rust colored. And when that happens, the leaves on the plants can't photosynthesize properly. Oh my goodness. And so when they can't photosynthesize properly, the plants kind of, they wilt and die. And so when farmers end up having their whole crop catch this rust disease, they lose their whole crop. And these farmers are families. They're family-owned farms, and so when they lose out on a farm to rust disease, that means they're losing out on their money for the year. And so it's a major impact on these families in Latin America. And so what this initiative is they're learning to bring science to the field to splice different strains of coffee plants. And so what they've done is they were able to splice a Robusto coffee tree or coffee plant with an Arabica coffee plant. So Arabica plants are normally grown at a higher elevation, and the Robusto plants are grown at a lower elevation. But the Robusto plants have a higher resistance to this rust disease because they're used to living in a warmer climate closer to sea level. So by splicing these Robusto trees with the Arabica trees, we're able to kind of give the Arabica trees a resistance towards the rust. So they're still not perfectly immune to the rust, but they have a higher resistance. And so farmers have been able to replace entire farms with the Arabica Robusto hybrid plant, and it's been able to save several farms. One of the first farms that have been completely swapped out for these Arabica Robusto hybrid is the Costa Rica farm called Alsacia. And so it's kind of like what Starbucks does to help these communities thrive and making sure that they can keep going coffee. And then this is a way for us to kind of tell the story for Luis Emilio Valadares that what he's doing on his part of the world to make sure that farmers can still keep farming and us coffee drinkers can still keep drinking coffee. And so this is one of the many stories that our reserve coffees have to offer. So it's really cool. My passion is just being able to tell these stories and share them with you, and making sure that we can all learn the different things that Starbucks does for these communities, and just making sure that these people they're getting their story told out there. So I want to thank you guys for joining me on today's coffee tasting. It was awesome. The Bolivia Sol de la Manana, super cool initiative using coffee science to further agricultural development and making sure that farmers can live sustainably, and just being able to be a part of telling that story is just super awesome. I'll be doing coffee tastings regularly on Tuesday mornings, so I want you guys to join me on this Tuesday morning. I'll be doing Kenya Baragwi, and so on Tuesday, I'll actually be doing it on the pour over and a French press. So we're going to change up the brew processes, get a little bit more of a bold, intense flavor, and then that standard flavor. But thank you guys, everyone, for joining me today. And then if you guys haven't, head on over to twitch.tv/TheRedShiftGamer, where I do most of my main live streaming, and that's where I monitor the chat. And so head on over there, hit that follow button if you haven't already, and if you guys have hit that follow button over on Twitch, thank you so much for joining me live. I will see you all on Tuesday morning. And also, don't forget, I'll be doing the Kenya Baragwi. If you have a reserve store nearby, you guys can go to that reserve store and buy a bag of Kenya Baragwi, get it ground for a paper filter or whatever your preferred brew method is, and then you can join me live and brew alongside the live video where we can kind of do our coffee tasting side by side, and I can teach you a little bit about the coffee we're drinking. So yeah, see you guys on Tuesday morning. Thanks again for joining me, and don't forget, grab a bag of Kenya Baragwi for Tuesday's coffee tasting. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great day.